I say, just look at it from a principled perspective. Put emotions to the side for a second. The reason why you said homosexuality is okay is because of the harm principle. You said so long as these people are not harming anybody else, they can do whatever they like. I'm saying the same exact logic can be applied to a brother and a sister. So long as they're not harming anybody else, what's the problem? We're using your same principle. Because one of them said it's not natural. I said, what did you say? Can you repeat that again, please? It's not natural. You're making an argument for what's natural and what's not natural. You see, they don't really have an argument against this. The only difference between homosexuality and incest is homosexuality had a movement in the 1960s where gay people, quote unquote, would walk in the street hand in hand and demand their rights. And brothers and sisters have never had that yet in the West. That's the only difference, my friend. So I want to know, this is Beacons, whatever place is, what's this place called? BNU. You might have a LGBT community here. I don't know if you have one. A society even. We are the LGBT society. I will say, it's very unfair that BNU, being a liberal institution, has a LGBTQ society, and they don't have an incest society. How dare BNU not discriminate against the incest? Why is it LGBTQ and it's not LGBTQI? There's a brother and a sister out there that just love each other. But you don't care about their feelings. You only discriminate against them because they came out of the same womb. And maybe some of them want to go back into the womb, sorry to say, in a different way. How dare you discriminate against these people that just want to have fun and love their brother in a non-platonic way, or their father or their mother? Oh, it's disgusting. How can you talk about this? What do you mean? You don't like this? This is where society is heading. When the white man will decide.
All right, let's pause that here. Okay? So Mohammed Hijab thinks he understands philosophy. He just studies these things a little bit, and he has just a very basic understanding of what he just read. And then he mixes it with using very big words, and he sees himself as a philosopher. But every time he talks about these things, it's quite obvious that he doesn't even have a basic understanding of any of these topics. So like he uses the word harm principle, and then he fails to go actually look at the harm that incest would cause. So he says, as long as it's not harming anybody, right? And he's making fun of the arguments that people would have against incest, but he doesn't even understand the arguments. Either he doesn't understand it, or he's strawmanning them, because he's not actually presenting the valid arguments that we have against incest, right? So he mentions the harm principle, and then he acts like we can't point to the harm when it comes to incest. LGBT relationship, the harm principle applies. There's no harm. Two men wanting to have two consenting adult men or two consenting adult women, they want to have sexual relationship with each other. No harm, then okay. So this moral standard is called utilitarianism. You try to reduce harm and increase benefit as long as the net benefit over harm is higher, then you're good to go. And then we have rule utilitarianism and act utilitarianism. I personally prefer rule utilitarianism, but I'm not going to get into that. But again, so that applies. So we say there's no harm in two men or two women, two adult men or two adult women having sexual relationship with each other, as long as you have informed, genuine consent. Easy peasy. If you apply that rule, then there's no harm and there's benefit. They're enjoying each other's company. They're enjoying each other's, they're having sexual pleasure. They're having romantic pleasure. They're having love pleasure, all sorts of different pleasures. Okay. And that's all of it is. There's a lot of benefit in that and no harm. We have a reason for why that's okay. And you have no reason other than your moral structure standard, which is divine command theory, which we'll get into. but you have no good reason for why that is bad. Now let's go look at incest. He acts like we are saying it's not natural. He presents our arguments against incest as an appeal to nature fallacy and an appeal to disgust fallacy. No, if something is disgusting to me, that doesn't make it wrong. And if something is unnatural, that also doesn't make it wrong. Something could be not natural, but very beneficial. That's not the point. He acts like we cannot point to the harm. That means that he either is lying or he's talking about something that he has done no research. This is so easy to find out, right? Everybody first touches, like when you say brother and sister, everybody goes and talks about children, the potential of having children that have genetic disorders. But I'll go beyond that. Let's say if there's two brothers or two sisters where they cannot have any children, or a brother and a sister where, I don't know, they went snip with the boy and did something, they got a vasectomy and there's no way for them to have a children. This is why, by the way, I like rule utilitarianism, because when you make something okay, it's not just about the specific examples that you could come up with that it's okay. You have to also consider the general consequences of making something okay. First of all, the most important thing that makes incest between siblings harmful, beyond potentially having children with genetic disability, is power dynamic. Why do you think we do not allow university teachers, professors in university, and their students, adult students, to be in a romantic relationship with each other? Why do you think that we also we make it illegal for an employer and an employee to be in a romantic or sexual relationship with each other? Why do companies we don't make it illegal. Companies have rules against that, or universities have rules against that, because of the power dynamics, because the potential for abuse. So when it comes to siblings, this is not about disgust. Me being disgusted by it or you being disgusted by it, that doesn't make it not okay. Okay? As long as somebody could enjoy something and they are not harming, that should make it okay. But here's the thing. When you allow something, even you have to think about that, the broader implications of allowing that. This is called rule utilitarianism rather than act utilitarianism. Act utilitarianism looks at, like, I look at that action specifically in its isolation. I like, is this causes more harm than good? Then it's wrong. If it doesn't, then it's okay. But rule utilitarianism says, like, hold on a minute. It might not in this specific instance, but if we allow this, then something bad could happen. Let me give you an example. If, for example, let's say you're driving, there's a red light, and it's 2 a.m. in the morning, and there's not a single car inside. And if you go through this red light, nothing will happen. There are no cars. There's no way that you're going to have an accident. Should we make it so that we say, you know what? Only stop behind the red light if you are not sure if it's going to be harmful. In situations where you can almost sure that there's no cars, then let's allow people crossing red light. This is very dangerous, because now we're opening the door to people judging whether or not they should cross a red light. Even though in that specific example, is true that in that case there's no harm, we want to come with a rule that in general, because it's really, we don't have utilitarian calculators that works perfectly with every person at all times. We have to come up with broad rules that generally reduces harm, even if you could find instances in it that does it. As long as it works most of the time, we don't allow certain things, because even if it doesn't cause any harm, because in other cases it does. We are not able to just go apply these rules one case at a time. We have to generally apply this rule. So am I going to be able to come up with an example of incest that has no harm? Yes, I can come up with an example of incest that has zero harm. For example, let's say two sisters that were separated at birth, at a very young age, right? Let's say, for example, one girl is 1 year old, and the second girl, and she's removed from the family, and then her sister is born after. She never even saw her sister, right? From early childhood, they were separated. you know. So she left the house at 1 year old, like somehow, like let's say it's a poor family, they had to put that child for adoption. The 1 year old girl, some other family took her and adopted her, and then they had another girl, and she was born, and at that time this family was not poor anymore, so they kept that one. But the older sister, she went to another family and they was adopted. And these girls grew up separate from each other, never saw each other, and now they're adults. Both of them are adults, and now they see each other, okay, and now they fall for each other and they want each other, and now they have sexual relationship with each other. Imagine that. I basically removed all harm. This is an example that I came up with this example to show you. There are cases that there is no harm in this, because first of all, last time I checked, two women cannot have children with each other, so no potential having genetical disorder in the children, right? There's no power dynamics because they didn't grow up with each other. So the main issue that we have with siblings is that power dynamics within family, like the older one, if we have sexual relationship with within siblings, the older one has power over the younger one, and that opens the door for potential abuse. But these two girls were completely separate. Do I see any issue with this? No, I do not. Should we allow it? No. Why should we not allow it? Because that's not how we come up with rules. We do not come up with rules based on very weird, exceptional situations that might have no harm in it. Just like the example that I gave you with the red light. We do not say, do not cross the red light unless it's 2 a.m. in the morning and there's no car inside. We say, do not cross the red light. If you get caught crossing the red light, even if it was safe, you get a ticket. You get a ticket. So yeah, did I find an example that there's no harm? Yes, but there's harm in allowing that. So rule utilitarianism says, don't measure just the harm in that one specific act. Rule utilitarianism says, measure the general harm in making that okay, in general. And that's the difference between LGBT and incest. Do you guys understand what I just said? It's very important. This is what makes our moral standards so much superior, because this works. This works. We also look how advanced this moral system is. When we say this is allowed, this should be allowed, we are thinking about the broader consequences. We're not just thinking about the consequences of that specific action that we're allowing. That is act utilitarianism. Rule utilitarianism says, like, okay, here it might not produce any harm, but what happens in a society that this is allowed in general? When it comes to LGBT, if LGBT is allowed in general, there is no harm. The benefit is way outweighs the harm. But in a society, if because of these few exceptions that I came up with, we allow incest and we say it's okay, because of the power dynamics that exist within families, we have opened a giant door to abuse. I'm not appealing to nature, and I'm not appealing to disgust. Frankly, there's a lot of sexual behaviors people have with each other that disgust me, but it doesn't harm anybody, and they're enjoying it. And I bet you there's a lot of things I enjoy sexually that disgust other people. I'm not talking about disgust. I'm talking about harm reduction. And you can see Mohammed Hijab doesn't understand this. I managed to show you why allowing incest is not okay based on the harm reduction principle. And he would have been able to notice this if he'd done a little bit of research, but he's a dishonest person. He's dishonest. He's here just to straw man. But here's the thing. I gave you a reason. What is your reason? Like I just told you, based on a utilitarian argument, I just showed you how effective our moral system works.
You don't like this? This is where society is heading. When the white man will decide incest is okay, the Pakistani liberal will say, oh, he said it's okay. That means it's okay now. We must have incest society. You shut your mouth, you slave. You shut your mouth. You don't know, you see, you don't know why the white man said this. And you followed him. You took his advice, and look at you now. I spoke to one liberal, Lars Gull, in Norway, and I said to him, what about animals? Sorry to say, bestiality. And he said, yes, animals is fine. Like a dog, for example. A donkey. Huh? You have many donkeys here. So what are you going to have? When I come to BNU, 10 years from now, I'm going to have see a stable of donkeys and the humans standing next to them and say, this is part of the bestiality society? Because these people said it's okay? Come on.
First of all, the white man will tell you this, the white man will tell you that. Mohammed Hijab being racist, basically, against white people, which is interesting because I need to actually say something in defense of Islam. Mohammed Hijab is managing to be even more disgusting than Islam, because as bad as Islam is, and Islam is bad, Islam is, as an ideology, is not very racist. It is very tribalist, like it does believe in supremacy of Muslims over non-Muslims. But when it comes to ethnicities, it's not a very racist religion. It doesn't believe in ethnic superiority. I mean, the Arab language and the Arab people, sometimes it does sound like it believes in Arab superiority. Like, I give you that. But in general, it's not aggressively racist, which is interesting because Mohammed Hijab is now being discussing in a way that not even Islam is. And this, what he's telling you, this is woke ideology, being anti-white man. You know, he's getting that from wokeism. He's getting that from outside of Islam. Like, oh, the white man will tell you this. Like, the white man, aren't you supposed to be beyond ethnicity? Like, what about white Muslims? Aren't they? You're supposed to be a supremacist in a different way. You're not supposed to be anti-white people, at least not Islamically. In fact, if there is any colorism in Islam, Islam celebrates white skin. Islam in the Quran is obsessed, for example, with women with whiter skin, Huris in heaven, for example, with whiter skin. Like, it's so obsessed with the skin being white that it tells you that women, you know, the Huris, the sex slaves, the angels that you are allowed to have sex with in heaven, they're so white that they're transparent and you can see their bones. So it's obviously that in Islam, at least a few times that skin color is mentioned, a whiter skin has been seen as superior. But where are you getting this? Like, oh, the white man, the white man. Where are you getting this from? This doesn't come from Islam. This comes from leftist, far leftist ideas.
This is servitude. This is docility. This is subordination. This is slavery. This is intellectual molestation.
You're being said
Intellectually molested. It's true. It's true.
I think he said it one more time because he was expecting a laugh the first time, and he was like, guys, I said something funny, and please laugh.
Stop it. Stop being intellectually molested. Stop it. Shake it off you now. Let this speech be some kind of an awakening for you. The white man doesn't respect it. The white man doesn't care. He's got.
The white man doesn't care? I mean, what the hell? Where is this racism coming from? The white man doesn't care? I mean, wouldn't you at least with your own sick minds as Muslims, wouldn't you at least be like, well, hey, brother, we have a lot of white Muslims. You're being offensive to our white brothers. Like, what happened to all ethnicity not mattering? What happened to that teaching in Islam? The white man doesn't care? How is this? Like, imagine you said that about any other group. Imagine if it's like, black people don't care, or like said this, something like this about Jews or Arabs. Everybody would recognize that as absolutely racist. How is this okay with white people? The white man doesn't care. What the hell is this? Oh, it's interesting because right after a white man just burned himself alive screaming free Palestine. I mean, I don't agree with that guy. I think what he did was stupid, but he seemed to care. I mean, judging by the screaming of free Palestine while he was burning as a white man, he seemed to care. What do you mean the white man doesn't care?
The white man doesn't care. He's got his own life. He does not care. He's not impressed. I guarantee you he's not impressed. If you died, he wouldn't care. The people who care about you are your family members. Honestly. Your people, your community, they care about you. The Muslims.
You're like, oh, the white man doesn't care. Muslims care. Is Mohammed Hijab not familiar with the concept of a white Muslim? I don't understand how he thinks like he's making society, dividing it into white men and Muslims. I don't understand how this works. I think he doesn't understand how stupid he is.